Oh, watch out because I'm fired up today, man. I'm going to be we're talking about transparency in government and about taking out loans just because we can. That's going to be a topic on the way. You don't want to miss out on that. Plus, we're going to be talking to Dr. Richard Moss. He's got a fascinating book called The Empire of Eunuchs: How the Republican Party Betrayed America. And it's some interesting stuff. And we'll talk more about that with Dr. Moss here in a couple of minutes. But first, we're going to get to the local thing that has got me really fired up, and that is this this bond issue. It's making me crazy. I got to tell you, you may have heard about the city wanting to take out a new $24 million bond for parks. Now, we've got parks that are in disarray and disrepair, and we really need to make some investments into those parks. The problem here is that, as usual, the city of Evansville isn't interested in taking care of what we have. They instead want new things. So out of this $24 million, they had $11 million of it allocated to Mesker Park Zoo for what I refer to as the Long Neck Hotel. They're telling the giraffes to get a room and wanting to spend $11 million on a breeding barn so that we would have not one, not two, but instead a herd of giraffes at Mesker Park Zoo. Not bad. Nothing wrong with having a herd, but by the same token, at what expense? And when you're borrowing the money to do it in these economic times, is that the wisest thing that we could choose to do? Look, you may not have heard about this bond. You may not have heard that the city wants to go another $24 million in debt to do these things. But that's because we're not getting the information. In fact, the Board of Park Commissioners didn't get the information on this bond until just before a meeting. And then, well, then of course the board of commissioners decided that they weren't going to take immediate action on something that they just heard about, so they put it off. And then they had a second meeting in which they discussed it. And at the second meeting is when the giraffe exhibit or the giraffe barn got taken out of the proposal. Okay, so now this $24 million bond, they're going to take out $11 million of what they wanted to the bond to pay for, and you would think that that would decrease then the amount of the total bond down to maybe 13 million instead of 24. But no. Instead, the bond stays intact with the full amount. It's just the draft part gets taken out, and the other items that they want to accomplish out of this will just get more money. Now, listen to what they're going to spend, what they're proposing to spend $24 million on, and maybe you'll get fired up a little bit too. Playground equipment for Garvin Park is one of those items. Splash pads for city pools. Now, what they're talking about here is whatever city pools happen to still be functional after we've left the maintenance of the pools go to the point where we've had to be closing them down. So instead of allocating the money for that necessary maintenance, instead we're going to build new splash pads. It's great thinking. It's great thinking. Of course, some of this money is going to go into downtown, into the a park at 4th and Main, that big development that's going in down there. Sprinklers for golf courses. 2 of our golf courses need new irrigation systems, so we're going to put new sprinklers in to those places. Then we've got air conditioning for Swander. That's definitely needed. They need restrooms at Westerman. All right. And then a renovation to the vet hospital at Mesker. But you see, these items we're going to get, they had the amounts all laid out. Those amounts could now be doubled going to each one of those projects, even if the project doesn't warrant that much additional funding. It's a little crazy to me. It's kind of like, though, to me, it's a little bit crazy that the reason that this bond came up is because your property values went up. And when the value of property in Evansville and Vanderburgh County increases, your ability to borrow against land valuations increases as well. So because we had an increase in land valuations, then we are eligible for some additional bonds. So rather than pass up an opportunity to go further in debt, we're going to go for it and put ourselves in a position of paying back millions of dollars a year out of our budget. You get into this cycle where you're trying to pay down your debt, but then you qualify for more debt, so let's borrow some more, and then we got to pay it down too. And you get into that cycle. Does that make sense to anybody? I mean, can we run our homes that way? Is it possible that we could wind up, as citizens, just going ahead and borrowing based on our property value going up a little bit? Well, let's borrow some more money. Let's just keep, we don't have to put off any purchase. Let's borrow more money, and it's what we're doing as a city, and we're going to spend ourselves into oblivion here. We're going to leave our children and our grandchildren with a huge debt load. The city has already got $1 billion, that's $1 billion with a B, $1 billion worth of bond debt in existence today. 700 million of that is dedicated to the sewer project. But that still means that we've got hundreds of millions of dollars of bond debt that we bought just new shiny things, and we aren't taking care of what we've got. We closed Mesker Music Amphitheater and we let it rot. Never wanted to go in and fix it. The city didn't. A lot of citizens did, but the city never had that on their heart. Go walk through Garvin Park and see how some of the things are kind of crumbling there. The condition of the fountain and other things in that park that need to be fixed. Go to any of our parks and look at the condition in those parks and ask, should we be investing more money into the additional money into either a giraffe barn or irrigation for the golf courses or whatever, when we aren't taking care of the stuff that's in existence? Let's get down and not having to borrow the money to do it. It would be even better yet. What that would mean is actually tightening up on the budget, being more transparent, keeping citizens informed about where we are at as far as finances go for this city, because it's not a pretty picture. And at a time when everybody is tightening their belts to deal with inflation and all of these prices going up, certainly the prices on maintenance on things is going up as well. Doesn't it make sense that we take the steps that we need in order to take care of the things that we have? That would be the fiscally responsible thing to do. I'm going to encourage you. There's a public hearing October 16th at noon. I know it's a bad time for a lot of people because can you get away from work to go to this? But the Parks Board of Commissioners meets again on October 16th at noon, and then another meeting on October 30th. They're going to be taking public comment on this $24 million bond issue. And maybe you should show up. Maybe you need to make your voice heard, because honestly, people in government believe that we citizens don't care what they do, that we're going to let them continue to spend, and spend some more unless we take the steps. So hit those public hearings and let your voice be heard. All right, we're going to turn our attention now we've got Dr. Richard Moss on the line, coming to us from Jasper. He is written a very interesting book, and I saw the title and laughed as soon as I took, because it's the book is called "The Empire of the Eunuchs: How the Republican Party Betrayed America." That's quite a title, Dr. Moss.
Right, and I believe it's accurate. I'm afraid that's the whole problem.
So, I mean, it's that's a pretty big bite on the Republican Party. So, how has the Republican Party betrayed America?
Well, basically, they are the uniparty. You know, they're a pretend conservative opposition party, but they fail in so many ways. You know, they're really more than happy to go along with the Democrats on virtually everything, minus maybe 1% or 2%. So, I mean, they lead us to socialism in the same way, just a little bit slower. I mean, the problem in this country is that we actually do not have a uh, a true conservative opposition party. And again, we've heard the term uniparty. It's quite accurate, except it's even worse because the Republican Party is the junior member of the uniparty. So it's not even that they're equal, but it's a uniparty. The other common term you hear is controlled opposition. And they sort of legitimize the left because they can say, well, you got a Republican Party, a conservative opposition party, and so it sort of enables them and legitimizes them when in fact we really have a corrupt, broken political system.
And this is, I mean, your book is focused on the national scene of that, but we're seeing that in the Republican Party at all levels, aren't we?
That's right, and I think we have a rhino problem. The common term rhino Republicans name only weak, limp, so-called conservatives, Republicans. But yeah, we have the same rhino problem: weak, feckless, ineffective Republicans at all levels. It's quite frustrating, but they do a lot more damage at the national level, and so that's my focus. But actually, it's at the state level where we may have our best shot because there we have such commanding majorities, usually in certain states. Let's say 22 to 24 states where we have the trifecta of the governor and both houses, and often by very powerful majorities. The problem is that I think in many of these states, the Democrats recognize that they don't have a chance of winning, and so they join the Republican Party, claim that they're Republicans, but they really are Democrats. And I think even at the state level we see that, but it's at the national. I think we have a better shot of getting control of the Republic. It's more local, more grassroots. You have greater access. I know where my state legislators live. We live in the same town. I see them shopping at Walmart. You bump into them. It's a very different story at the national level. So in many ways, I think it's at the state level that we have the greater chance of exerting our influence and really having conservative, bastions, or let's say sanctuaries for the Constitution, our way of life, the Judeo-Christian tradition, all of those things that we speak about all of the time, but never really see them in practice or to be enacted. Is probably at the local and state level where we have the best shot. Nonetheless, I don't think we should abdicate at the national level. I don't think we should give that up at all. But I would say it's more daunting at the national level.
Mm-hmm. And I think that Indiana is actually a pretty good example of this, in that conservatives in the state of Indiana took over the state convention with the Republican Party this last summer, and they lobbied for a conservative Christian candidate for lieutenant governor, and they won at the convention.
True, and right, I agree with you. That's a great example of how we have, I think, a stronger opportunity to exert our influence at the local and then state level. That's true. And the problem is the primary system. Really at the national level, or even for that matter at the state and local level, it's very hard to unseat incumbents. And they get in there, they make all the promises that we are familiar with. Their claims to be, diehard, rock-ribbed conservative Republicans, and then they get there, and they govern differently, they vote differently. But then at that point, it's extremely difficult to unseat them. And so, this whole idea of the caucus, which we had recently as a way to replace Mark Mesmer, state senator, because he's going to Congress, most likely he's running for that position. So we actually had a local caucus, and I wonder if that's not a better way to go instead of the primaries. That's another topic of discussion, but uh, the bottom line is once they get in, it's extremely difficult to unseat an incumbent. And so you're left with the same weak,
Hmm.
limp, feckless Republican Party that never fights on anything, and more or less goes along with the Democrats on about 98% of their agenda. And they're also really pathetic on cultural issues. I mean, they have an allergy. It's as if they don't understand that when you lose the culture, you've lost the politics. When you no longer have strong, intact married families and good, church-going communities and strong local communities and good jobs and so forth, but particularly just good, strong civil society where you have, again, the strong families, strong churches, and strong local communities. That's the foundation to me, of the United States in general, but certainly the Republican Party. And so we have to build on that. So I would say go local, state level, but then do not give up on the
Yeah,
national
at
level.
the local level, I know that people tend to feel disconnected, and there's also been a move, actually nationwide, to get more people involved at the precinct committeeman level, because creating that
True.
change comes from the grassroots up, and it certainly makes the establishment Republican Party really nervous at this point.
Right, right. No, I know that that precinct committee level and that movement to recruit strong conservatives at that level is out there, and I've heard. No, I think that's a great thing. So yeah, I agree with that. And the trouble is that the government is as we know and as we always complain about has gotten so big and the money and the spending and all the various programs, it's become truly a leviathan, and it's difficult to break that up. But so I would say I agree that it's really at the local level, state level, we had the best shot. But continue fighting at the national level, and then this whole primary thing is a little bit challenging because it requires a lot of resources and money, funding, and all that to unseat an incumbent in a primary. So we're going to run against the Rhino, let's say, but then they have all the funding, the name recognition becomes rather daunting, almost impossible. I mean, we recall the famous case when Dave Bratt unseated Eric Cantor. 2014 in Virginia, and he's a big conservative, Dave Bratt, and Eric Cantor was your typical Rhino. He was the majority leader. So no one thought Dave Brett had a shot. But I'm afraid that's been sort of few and far between. But that's sort of our very memorable case where we actually unseated a very weak Republican, very powerful Republican, and replaced him with a very strong conservative. But it is hard to do.
And the funny thing to me is that the party has this platform, right? And it spells out what we're supposed to stand for, and it's less government, let's spend less, all of those things. Keep government off our backs, basically, and and then nobody follows that. I mean, we elect people in, and all of a sudden, that platform just doesn't seem to exist to them anymore.
Well, that's right. But I would say doing these contracts is better than nothing. But I agree with you. They put out their platform and their contract, which started, you may remember, with Gingrich in 94, contract
Hmm.
with America. And, that led the Gingrich Revolution. And, that was sort of a response to Hillary care and overreach by the Democrats. And so you had for the first time in, 45, 50 years, the Republicans took both houses of Congress, particularly Congress, had eluded us for decades. So I do like the contract model, but you're right, you have to hold to it. But at least if you spelled it out, then they can hold you accountable to that. So I think those contracts are good. They serve a purpose. And I had contracts when I ran for Congress 3 times now. I had my contracts as well with what I called the 8th District, and then as well beyond that with America that I would try to enforce. But you hold to that. You have your 10 points, let's say, and you go through the issues and whatever is salient at the time, and we sort of know what they are now. The spending and immigration and um, bringing jobs back, avoiding foreign wars, and then pushing back against this whole green nonsense agenda, this whole
Hmm.
global warming scam, to really pursue full spectrum energy independence. All of the issues and then again, the cultural issues that we want to, restore the civil society, restore, the just the understanding of the importance of traditional intact married families, and then of course church communities and then just local communities in general. That really is our holy grail, is to go with the civil society, because we understand that when you have a strong civil society, the need for government is greatly lessened. And so they sort of go together. If you have broken families, criminality, school dropouts, drug issues, and so forth, broken families, you're by necessity you will require a big government, and so the whole idea of having a small government is lost, because again you've lost the culture. So we do come back. I come back frequently to the importance of restoring the culture, restoring faith communities, and the marriage as a single most important institution that binds the soil of any society. The union of a man and a woman in marriage, and then to have children after you're married, not before. Just going back to very basic understanding to restore the culture is, to me, the most important thing, and to deliver that message boldly. The Republicans, they're always happy to talk about a little bit the Second Amendment, which we appreciate. But all right, we know about guns, babies, taxes. That's what the Republicans have run on forever. It's time to go beyond that. The country's in very bad shape. And we can no longer stick to the old tried and true, guns, babies, taxes. As important as those things are, we really have to go beyond that.
Well, and you outline some of that in your book, and some of the things that I know that you have stood up for include things like repealing Obamacare, getting our government spending level down to previous levels when we weren't spending like drunken sailors, which it's hard to find a time that we weren't, limiting government size and those sorts of things. You've been very specific in laying out some of the things that you think are needed for the future of this country.
Right, right. And, I call it my Red State Manifesto. Uh, but again, it applies at the national level as well. But yeah, obviously, the need to balance the budget and cut spending. And there's simple plans that would do that. The one penny plan, you cut 1 penny per dollar, and within a few years you'll have a balanced budget. And it's across the board, simple plans of that nature. And um, yeah, so, and then a host of other things. But basically, we want to hold fast to the Constitution, the principles of limited government, the Judeo-Christian foundation. We also, we become a bit of a blue collar party as well, and I think that's good. I mean, the Democrats have abandoned, I would say, the working class. They've maybe they are the party of the super rich, the corporations of Wall Street, or the banks. It's been this real turnaround, it seems, but I think we should embrace that. I think we should embrace this whole notion of blue collar conservatism, and we favor the workers, and we want to bring jobs back. It's the whole thing of free trade was found to be a concept that was a little bit wanting because other countries took advantage of us, and we shipped our jobs and factories overseas. We decimated the heartland of the country, and so many of them now in the heartland are, falling prey to fentanyl and suicide and depression. A lot of them are not working. Again, broken families, the whole thing. We've really abandoned the middle or working class, we can say, and I think it's reasonable for us to embrace the mantle of becoming the working class party and standing up for the working man.
Well, really appreciate your time. This has been an interesting conversation, and the book is fairly new. It's just been out for a few months, and want to encourage everybody to get a copy of it. Again, the book is called "The Empire of the Eunuchs: How the Republican Party Betrayed America." Definitely worthwhile reading for anybody who's concerned about the future of this great republic.
Hey, well, thanks a lot, Johnny. I appreciate it.
I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. And people can get the book on Amazon and through your website, right?
Right. Let me say my website has got a lot of stuff worth taking a look at. You'll see when you get there, but it's richardmossmd.com, richardmossmd.com, and you can get it there or on Amazon is fine as well, Barnes and Nobles as well.
Thanks, Dr. Moss. All right, now we're going to wrap up with just some words for you here because we're into that season where early voting is starting. People are going to the polls, and I've just got to tell you, don't take anything for granted. Don't sit back and believe that it's all in the bag. Make sure that you get out and vote and that you tell others to do so as well. Take them to the polls if you've got to, whether it's in early voting or whether you wait until the day that's designated as election day. Make sure that you get in and vote. It's important, and it's probably never been more important than it is now. We've got some big decisions to make, and so we want to make sure that our voice is heard. So be sure that you get out and vote. Thanks for joining us for this week. I'm Johnny Kincaid. Be sure to like and share the program, and of course, subscribe so that you get updated on future editions of This Week